All right, those circled notes on slide 1 of the major scale are the A major scale, right?
Yep.
Why?
Because the 1 is A,
Right,
and the formula 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1
applies to that, right? So
applies.
because A is 1 and the rest of the notes fall in that note function formula, that's what makes that what it is.
Right.
All right, what if I look at the same sheet you're looking at and I call B1 instead of A?
If you call B1, then it becomes a B major scale, right?
No. This is where the other scales come from, right? And this is where modes come from. This is actually what modes are.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about a Dorian. So now
Well, yeah, but forget about Dorian for just a second.
okay.
Let's pretend we don't know any of that yet. All right, so we're looking at these circled notes, and we said, okay, we get why if we call A1, we get all that, right? All right, so what happens if we call B1? Well, we got to look at it, all right? Well, if we look look at it on the A string, right? The A string only.
Okay.
So if I say B is 1 and I go up a whole step, I land on C sharp, right? So I can call that 2 because we know from our major scale that 2 has to be a whole step up from 1.
Right.
Okay, so with that information, it could be a B major scale. We don't have enough information to say what it is yet, right?
Right.
So if we go to the next note, then we say, okay, well, no, it can't be a major scale because that third note would have to be a whole step up from that 2,
Right.
what is now 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'd have to be that E flat note, not the D.
Right.
So because that note is down a half step from its major scale position, we can't call that 3 anymore. So now we call it flat 3.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the third degree of a scale is what determines whether that scale is major or minor. If that third degree is 2 whole steps up from 1, earning its number 3, right?
Yep.
Right, it's going to be major. If it's a whole step plus a half step like it is now, looking at B being 1, then it's going to be some kind of minor scale. So with just those 3 notes, we know we've got some kind of minor. We don't know what yet, but there's some kind of minor scale.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if we look at the fourth note with being 1, is that 4? Well, we have to kind of compare it to what we know with the major scale. So let's go back to A being 1 for a second and count up half steps to the D, which is 4 if A is 1, right?
Right.
So if I go A, all right, so B flat's 1 half step, B is 2, C is 3, C sharp is 4, D is 5. So for 4 to be 4, it has to be 5 half steps above 1,
Okay.
right? So now let's go back to calling B1 and let's go up 5 half steps and see what happens. 1, C, 2, C sharp, 3, D, 4, E flat, 5, E. So E can be 4. You see how that works?
Yep.
All right. So for the same reason, F sharp can be 5 if B is 1. And G sharp can be 6 because it figures into that math right. But however, if we look at that A, that can't be 7. Why? Well, we know between 6 and 7 is always a whole step, right?
Yep.
Or between 7 and 1 is always a half step, so it doesn't fit that. So it's down a half step from where it needs to be. So we call that flat 7. So by calling B1, we've created a new scale and new chord out of the exact same set of notes. Right? And we've created a scale with a note function formula of 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. And this is how we get the modes, is that we call each degree of the major scale 1, thereby forcing a new note function formula.
So what would you call that scale?
B Dorian Minor.
Oh, okay. Right.
Its modal name is B Dorian.
Right. Oh, because when I said that before, you said, "Well, let's not talk about that."
Well, I didn't want to. I wanted to like go through the process of why it's Dorian.
Right. Right. Okay.
And where the modes come from. The modes come from simply by calling each degree of a parent scale 1. In this case, the major scale being the parent scale.
Right.
So if we called 3 1 in a major scale, like C sharp, then we'd force a note function formula of 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, which would be the C sharp Phrygian, or the third mode of the major scale.
Right.
Same thing with D. If we call D 1, we get the Lydian. And the major scale's modal name is Ionian.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay. All right, any questions on that?
I get that pretty good.
All right, okay. Now go to your A Dorian Minor now.
Okay.
All right, now what I've done with these scales is I've kept everything with an A being 1. Right? Because I want you to see how these boxes and the key centers move on the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if A is 1, so as you see, all the notes have gone down a whole step from where they were, right? So what note would I have to call 1 here for it to be a major scale?
For it to be a major scale, you would have to call G1.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
But since I'm calling A1, it's an A Dorian minor.
Right.
So essentially, all the boxes have gone down a whole step. They're the same exact boxes in the exact same order, but they've gone down a whole step, and their note function is different. But the shapes are exactly the same. So you already know this one.
Yeah, this is crazy. I'm actually seeing it now.
Yeah.
it's like actually making sense to me, man.
All right. But when you study these, Dom, you want to like pretend like they are the only scale in the world.
Right.
In other words, it's good to understand the relationship. Okay, I see where this comes from, but then leave that alone. Go ahead and shut the door, right? Because this is its own individual personality. It's like a different person. It's related to that other guy, but it's a completely different individual.
Yep.
So treat it like one. Don't pretend like you're playing the G major scale, because that's you wouldn't like be giving credit to who this person really is.
Right.
Because A is 1, C is flat 3, D is 4. I mean, you got to be there with it.
Right.
All right. Now, with that being said, basically you just study this the same exact way as you did the major scale. So the first thing I would like you to do with this Dorian is get to know the note function formulas of the scale on slide 1, which would be 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1, which means between 1 and 2 is a whole step, between 2 and flat 3 is a half step, between flat 3 and 4 is a whole step, between 4 and 5 is a whole step. Now, remember when you asked me about the scale on the fingerboard harmony stuff?
Mm-hmm.
This is what those numbers on that sheet are, the Dorian note function.
Right.
Yeah. But that's in the key of B flat. This is in the key of G.
Yep. So I should know, like I know that the major is a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step.
Well, yeah, but don't think of it that way. Think of it, the major is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, which means between 1 and 2 is a whole step, between 2 and 3 is a whole step.
Okay.
Think of the numbers. Think of it in terms of the numbers, and then what those numbers mean, as opposed to what they mean, instead of coming in the back door on it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you manipulate these things, you're going to be doing it from the numbers.
All right.
That's a real important part of this process, is do it from the numbers and then what the numbers mean.
Okay.
All right, because Dorian's always going to be 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. Always. Right now.